Okay, something super embarrassing just happened, and I need to talk about it. So one of my all-time favorite Pokemon-themed games is PokeDoku, a puzzle game where every day there's a new 3x3 board which you have to fill out by naming Pokemon that match up with the typing or traits in the left and top rows. It's super simple and surprisingly addictive, and I used to play it all the time. So imagine my surprise when PokeDoku themselves reached out and said that I could be the featured creator today and make my very own board for anyone to play. Obviously, I immediately said yes and got to work crafting my board using my favorite genres and typings of Pokemon. Paradox Pokemon, Legendaries, my 4 favorite types. It was the perfect puzzle. So I hit the submit button, but there was a problem. In order to submit the board, I had to fill out the puzzle myself. And that's when I realized I'd been making my own Pokemon for so long, I forgot all the real Pokemon. Guys, this is really bad. PokeDoku wants this puzzle by today, and I have no idea what to put. I mean, I really wanted to get this puzzle out for you, but I don't even know what... Wait a second. I wanted to get this puzzle out for you. I wanted to get this puzzle out for you. For you! If I can't think of any real Pokemon, I'll just cheat and fill out my board with 9 brand new custom Pokemon and hope that PokeDoku doesn't notice. That's right, today we'll be making 9 brand new custom Pokemon for randomly selected commenters. And of course, we'll be spinning wheels to get factors for the Pokemon as always. But we'll also have the added challenge of making them fit into my Doku board. And there isn't much time. This puzzle has to come out like right now. So if you end up liking today's video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's get into the first Pokemon. And this one will be for Octanico. I'm glad you like it when we get Paradox Pokemon because we'll be making at least 3 today. So alright, Nico, let's start by spinning this brand new wheel to decide which square of my PokeDoku puzzle your Pokemon will fall in, and it's the top left. That's an absolutely perfect place to start, and it also means that you'll be getting a Paradox Pokemon that's part Fairy type. But we still need to know what Pokemon we'll be making a Paradox form for, so let's start by spinning this wheel to get the generation that the Pokemon's from, and it's Gen 4. So now we'll spin this wheel that has every single Generation 4 Pokemon on it, and we got Licky. That is definitely a super strange Pokemon. And we also know that Licky is pure normal type, and all the Paradox Pokemon keep at least one of their original types, so we know that our final typing is normal fairy. But the last and most important wheel we have to spin before making the Pokemon is this one, which will decide if we're making a past or future Paradox form, and it is a future. So we have to make a normal fairy type robotic Licky. Wish me luck, y'all. Your Pokemon is Iron Tongue, the printer Pokemon. This Pokemon's body has the strange property to infinitely produce a sparkly pink material, which it uses to create a large tongue-like appendage, which it uses in battle to both swing towards opponents, as well as wrapping it around itself in order to block incoming attacks. And this makes the Pokemon a weird but highly effective fighter, as if any piece of its tongue breaks, it can easily print out a new one and continue the fight. In terms of stats, Iron Tongue is a fairly bulky mixed attacker, as it's got good defenses as well as solid physical attack and special attack. But you can't have everything, so its speed is pretty low. And for the shiny, I just went with the classic Future Paradox form shiny, where they become chrome. And usually I think those shinies are pretty boring, but on this Pokemon, it looks really good. But now let's get into the second Pokemon. And this one will be for Clarabara. I'm glad you liked Setamage in the last episode. That was one of my favorite too. So alright, Clara, let's see which square of my PokeDoku puzzle you will be filling, and it is the bottom right. And that means you'll be a combination of my favorite 2 types, ground and rock. But we still need to see what power level of Pokemon we'll be making, so let's spin the power level wheel, and you are going to be regular. Nothing wrong with that. And now we need to see how many times your Pokemon can evolve, and you are going to get 1, which makes you a 2-stage evolution line. And since we already know your typing, the last step is to see if it has an X factor, and you have none this time. The first stage of your Pokemon is Jagmint, the Underbite Pokemon. These Pokemon use their sticky mud skin to latch onto the sharpest, largest rocks they can find, and making them part of its body. And this pretty much wards off all potential foes, as no Pokemon is dumb enough to try to make contact with its piercing appendages. At level 24, it would evolve into Cragmint. These Pokemon have gone from defensive to offensive, as it no longer uses its sharp rocks to keep foes away, and instead fashions them into giant giant fangs, which it uses to chomp down on any cave Pokemon that dare get in its way. In terms of stats, Jagmint has very good physical attack as well as HP. However, its defensive stats and its speed are pretty mid. And for the shiny, I went with this blue color to make the swirling mud body look more like a watery whirlpool. And the rocky teeth are now light blue to look like shards of ice. So it's almost like some sort of type swapped version. But now let's get into the third Pokemon. And this one will be for Micah Schmidt, who said that they hope they get a custom Pokemon before the series ends. And look at that, you're getting one and the series isn't even close to over. That's amazing. So, alright, Micah, let's start by seeing which square of my PokéDoku your Pokemon will be filling, and it is the top right, which means the typing of your Pokemon will be Fairy Rock type. But the first thing we still have to figure out is the power level of your Pokemon, so let's spin this wheel to get that, and you got a fossil Pokemon. That's actually perfect. We'll just swap your two types around, and there we go. And now let's spin this wheel to see how many times your fossil Pokemon can evolve, and you got one, which makes you the maximum 2-stage evolution line. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and you do, a signature ability. Hi! The first stage of your Pokemon is Lulalad, the Band Geek Pokemon. These Pokemon communicate to one another using a series of hums that to the outside ear sounds like beautiful small melodies. And while in the modern age, this is absolutely adorable and makes the Pokemon very beloved, in prehistoric times, it was a severe detriment, as eventually the larger and meaner Pokemon learned that if they wanted an easy meal, all they had to do was follow the music. At level 31, it would evolve into Sarensaur. These Pokemon have now weaponized their musical abilities, as they use the large harp-like sail on their back to create music so beautiful that it causes anything that hears it to become instantly enamored, freezing in place to listen until the melody ends. And this is reflected in its signature ability, Melodic Manipulation, which states that all of this Pokemon's sound-based moves have a 50% chance to infatuate any Pokemon that they hit. In terms of stats, Sarensaur has very good special defense as well as speed. And while its special attack is also pretty solid, its physical attack and defense are pretty bad. And for the shiny, I went with these dark orange and red colors to make the Pokemon look more vicious. But now let's get into the fourth Pokemon. And this one will be for Saving Grace, who said that this series revived their love for Pokemon. And these are my absolute favorite comments to see. They always hype me up. I love hearing that. So alright, Grace, let's start by seeing which square on my PokéDoku puzzle you'll be filling, and it is the middle. That is absolutely awesome. We're making our first legendary Pokemon, and we know it'll be water type. But even though we know it's a legendary Pokemon, we still have to spin this wheel to see what type of legendary it is, and you are a side legendary. So you'll be on par with Pokemon like Heatran and Cresselia. And we know that your legendary is part water type, but let's still spin this wheel to get a secondary type, and you actually got none, which means you'll end up being pure water type. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see what its X Factor is going to be, and it is a signature new mechanic. Awesome. Your Pokemon is Titatide, the inconceivable Pokemon. This Pokemon is the largest ever, and it's not even close, as it's known to dwarf even the likes of Wailord. But luckily for us, this giant size is paired with a very docile nature, as this Pokemon can pretty much only be found in the most remote parts of the ocean where it drifts aimlessly. But don't get me wrong, this Pokemon is still terrifying thanks to its near incomprehensible size, a size which is reflected in its signature new mechanic, where despite hailing from a world where the mechanic of Dynamaxing doesn't exist, Titatide can still learn Max Geyser, the water-type Dynamax move, at level 60. A truly overpowered attack usually reserved for Dynamax Pokemon, but for a creature of this titanic size, it's been turned into a simple moveset edition. In terms of stats, Titatide has absolutely insane HP, and the rest of its stats aren't even that bad, which on top of its natural Dynamax move makes this Pokemon absolutely terrifying. And for the shiny, I went with this green color just because I thought it looked absolutely beautiful. But now let's get into the fifth Pokemon. And this one will be from Moshe Montaigne, who says that this is the best series they've ever seen. Thanks so much. So alright, Moshe, let's see what square of my PokéDoku puzzle you'll be filling, and it is the middle left. So we're right back to Paradox Pokemon, and we know that this one will be a water type. And it means that now we'll spin this wheel to see what generation of Pokemon will be making a Paradox form for, and it's Gen 2. That's classic. And so, of course, we'll spin this wheel that has every single Gen 2 Pokemon on it, and we got Lugia. That is, like, the coolest thing we could have gotten possibly. That is amazing. Especially because a lot of people think that Lugia should be flying water type anyway. This is absolutely perfect. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it's a past or future Paradox form, and it is a past form. That is awesome. Your Pokemon is Surging Gale, the long fin Pokemon. This prehistoric beast is entirely different from the caring and protective Lugia we all know and love. As Surging Gale was known as one of the largest and deadliest monsters who lived in ancient oceans. In fact, Surging Gale is so different from Lugia that where in our universe, Lugia serves as the guardian of the legendary bird trio, in Surging Gale's universe, 3 Paradox legendary birds actually serve as guardians of the world from Surging Gale. That's right, in Surging Gale's universe, there's a Paradox form of Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres who are in a constant battle against Surging Gale in order to keep it at bay. In terms of stats, Surging Gale is pretty similar to Lugia, except whereas Lugia has pretty solid stats all around with a focus on defenses, Surging Gale is also pretty balanced but with a focus on offenses. And for the shiny, I went with this really cool purple and green color to make it look venomous, and I think it turned out great. But now let's get into the 6th Pokemon. And this one will be for Ethan Waddington. Corrupted form starter Pokemon would definitely be awesome. And we've actually already thought about doing that, but I think we need a more established starter trio first. But it's definitely something we're thinking of, so don't count it out. But anyways, Ethan, let's see which square on my Doku your Pokemon will be filling, and it is the bottom middle. So we're right back to legendary Pokemon, and this one will be a ground type. And again, we have to see what type of legendary this Pokemon will be, and it is again a side legendary. And now we'll see what typing this legendary will be, besides of course the ground type, and we got the electric type. That is actually super cool typing, very fitting for a legendary. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see what its X Factor is going to be, and it is a signature ability. Cool. Your Pokemon is Flurgashell, the striking fear Pokemon. Long ago, Flurgashell served as the ancient guardian of an oceanside kingdom, where it was adored and seen as a sort of deity. However, one day, while Flurgashell slumbered, the oceanside kingdom was attacked, with all of Flurgashell's loyal followers being cast out forever. And when Flurgashell awoke to all of his friends now missing, it developed an intense and deep fear for the outside world, as it's now known to sit idly in the remnants of its old home, and instantly attacking anyone who tries to enter with ginormous bolts of lightning, which are so powerful that if they strike the sand around the kingdom, they will instantly cause large pillars of glass to form where the strike landed. And it's this Pokemon's propensity for instantly attacking any potential threat that's reflected in its signature ability, Shell Shock, which sort of acts like a permanent stealth rock, as long as this Pokemon is on the field, it will automatically deal a small amount of electric damage to any enemy Pokemon that switches in. In terms of stats, Flurgashell is extremely defensive, however its special attack is also pretty decent. And for the shiny, I went with this light blue color because I thought it felt more electric, and I'm absolutely addicted to light blue shinies. If you've watched this series for any amount of time, then you already know that. But now let's get into the 7th Pokemon, and this one will be for Corrupted Dragon, who already planned out their Pokemon team for my eventual fan-made game. And this was super cool to see. I'd love if y'all did the same thing in the comments so I can look through your team. But anyways, Dragon, let's start by seeing which of my 3 remaining Doku squares you'll be filling, and it is the middle right, which means we'll be making a rock-water type Pokemon. And so we'll start by spinning the power level wheel to see what type of Pokemon we're making, and it is another regular. Still nothing wrong with that. And now let's see how many times your Pokemon can evolve, and you are going to get 0, which actually makes you a basic Pokemon. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and none this time. Your Pokemon is Sir Spout, the fountain Pokemon. This stone serpent has the ability to siphon moisture out of the ground, turning it into a constant stream of water which flows from its mouth. And for this reason, Sir Spouts are often obtained by very wealthy trainers who place them outside of their estate, as the aesthetic of their stone bodies and flowing water makes them pair well with their exorbitant mansion. And this also has the added benefit of providing extra security for the mansion, as if any intruder tries to find their way through the gates that Sir Spout guards, they will instantly attack them and show them that they're much more than simple decor. In terms of stats, Sir Spout is pretty unique because it has good physical defense as well as special attack. And for the shiny, I went with this green color for the water to look more venomous because the Pokemon's obviously based off a snake. But now let's get into the 8th Pokemon, and this one will be for Courtney Sparks. Big thank you to everyone who wished me a happy birthday, and to everyone who didn't, How could you? But anyways, Courtney, let's see which one of the 2 remaining Doku squares you'll be filling, and it is the bottom left. So this will be our last Paradox Pokemon, and we know that it'll be part ground type. But what we don't know is what generation of Pokemon will be making a Paradox form for, and it's Gen 5, my favorite generation. That's awesome. So now we'll spin this wheel that has every single Gen 5 Pokemon on it, and we got Whirlipede. That's actually awesome. I'm actually a really big fan of Scolipede. I do kind of wish we got that, but Whirlipede is a super unique Pokemon in its own right, so this is great. And of course, now we know that you'll be bug ground type. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it'll be a past or future Paradox form, and it is a past Paradox. Nice. Your Pokemon is Ripping Roller, the Shreds Pokemon. These Pokemon are absolutely terrifying, but we should be thankful that they existed, as while they were known for using their aerodynamic and razor-sharp bodies for ramming into opponents and tearing them to shreds, it was also their circular and effective structures that, when seen by early humans, led to the invention of the wheel, as they were inspired by the truly terrifying but honestly effective nature of this ancient insect. In terms of stats, Ripping Roller has really good speed and decent physical attack, but everything else is pretty bad, so this Pokemon is definitely an offensive sweeper. And for the shiny, I went with this purple color as a reference to the original Whirlipede. But now let's get into the 9th Pokemon! And this one will be for Mark Delark. I'm glad you like the in-game sprites for Pokemon Void. I always get super excited when the team makes new ones. So alright, Mark, let's start by wasting everybody's time to see which square on my PokéDoku puzzle you'll be getting, and it's the top middle. What? And that, of course, means you'll be a legendary that's fairy type. But we still need to see what type of legendary you'll be, so let's spin this wheel, and you are part of a legendary trio. That's really cool. That means we'll have to connect your Pokemon to a previous legendary from the series. Now let's see what typing your legendary is going to be, besides, of course, the fairy type, and it's the flying type. I don't think we have any other flying type legendaries, so it might be hard to make a legendary trio with this typing, I'll be honest. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see what its X Factor is going to be, and it is a signature move. Cool. Your Pokemon is Elstina, the Psycho Pump Pokemon. In episode 14, we created Mazaturna, a Pokemon that's said to be responsible for carrying souls from this world to the next. However, most of the souls placed in Mazaturna's control attempt to flee its grasp, with the successful souls returning to the world, but as ghost-type Pokemon. And this whole dynamic really implies that wherever Mazaturna is taking these souls, it's not exactly a place they want to be going. However, the opposite seems to be true with Elstina, a Pokemon that, like Mazaturna, also seems to help guide souls from this world to the next. However, where Mazaturna is seen as a scary monster, Elstina is seen as a good omen, with its calming energy bringing peace and comfort to all who see it. And this Pokemon's ability to get others to accept their fate is reflected in its signature move, Beckon Light, a physical attacking fairy move which does a very solid 95 damage, as well as having the bonus effect where it doesn't trigger any retaliatory effects, meaning it would prevent abilities that dealt damage after fainting, such as Pyukumuku's innards out, as well as effects like Glimmera's Toxic Debris, which puts toxic spikes on the field when the Pokemon is hit. In terms of stats, Elstina has a lot of HP as well as physical attack. And for the shiny, I went with this green energy as a reference to Mazaturna. Okay, I think we did it. We filled out my PokéDoku puzzle, and now all that's left to do is to send it over to Doku and hope they don't notice. Because if they don't, you can go to their website right now and play my puzzle for yourself. And that's gonna do it for today's video, y'all, but don't leave yet because I do have some very important announcements. First off, please go check out all the amazing artists that worked on the artwork for the Fakemon in today's episode. They can all be found in the description, and they all did amazing, especially because this was such a big project and it came up out of nowhere. Like, seriously, we put this together in record time, and I have them to thank, so please go check them out in the links in my description and support them. And as for announcements, I have two ginormous ones. The first one is that I now have a Discord for Pokemon Void. You can join using the link in my description. We're going to be posting updates there and doing some live streams while we work on the game. But the second announcement is even bigger because I'm also launching a second channel called Void Filler. This channel has become so high effort just because I keep setting the standard of editing and everything higher for myself every time, to the point where I feel like it's really difficult to upload any sort of new idea or more casual content to this page. So over on Void Fillers, I'll be posting more personality-driven content, and it would mean a lot to me if you gave that channel a chance. And you can subscribe to it by using the link in my description. There's no videos yet, but one should be coming soon. So yeah, we got a lot of awesome stuff in the works, and there's plenty to look forward to, so I'll see you in the next episode, but until then, peace.